Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Dante Dispro and Lowstone Gray. We'll be going over Cole from the Infamous series. As he is the protagonist for the first two games, spoilers! Lit.
So, Cole Macgrath is the protagonist of the first two Infamous games. He's also technically the antagonist of the first Infamous game, so for things to make sense, we've got to do a bit of world setup. In the Infamous verse, some creatures, the game specifically notes that this applies to animals as well, have the latent capacity to develop superpowers. It is called the Conduit gene, and those who have manifested their powers are generally classified as Conduits. All Conduits share a certain degree of superhuman speed, durability, strength, and regeneration, and all have more unique powers to themselves. Basically one big superpower plus the congratulations, you're now in an action movie, video game, superhero character. Things like being punched through walls no longer shatter your ribcage. A person with latent Conduit genes may go their entire lives without ever awakening any superpowers, but a handful do seem to manifest powers naturally. There are also nebulously defined, unpleasant methods of forcing powers to develop within a latent conduit, but the most successful method of awakening conduit genes involves the use of Rayfield energy. Rayfield energy is generated through a process that collects the neuroelectricity of all life in a given area and shunts all of that power into any latent conduit within that same area, which, as you might expect, kills all the normies in the energy field, leaving only the newly awakened conduit, or conduits, left standing. Rayfield energies also have a bit of a fallout effect afterward, as populations surrounding any Rayfield blast event may begin to succumb to a disease known as the Rayfield Plague, a seemingly incurable disease that is lethal to regular humans and latent conduits, but to which active conduits are seemingly immune.
Cole is an especially powerful conduit, gifted with an ever-expanding list of powers that all fall loosely under the umbrella of electrokinesis. He can store, channel, redirect, and amplify electrical and electromagnetic waves, which long-term lets him do everything from throwing lightning to telekinetically lifting cars, either teleporting or moving faster than the eye can see, and, most dubiously, travel through time. You see, the primary antagonist of Infamous 1 is a character who goes by the name Kessler, but Kessler is in fact Cole Macgrath from the future, who traveled back in time to avert the disastrous events of his original timeline. In future Cole's original timeline, hereafter referred to as Kessler, he at some point, seemingly naturally, awakened his conduit powers. He also married his longtime girlfriend Trish and had a few kids. Life was going very well, but at some point down the line, a conduit of tremendous power known only as the Beast emerged and began wreaking havoc on the world, leveling cities and slaughtering people by the millions. In hindsight, Kessler realized that he was probably powerful enough when the Beast emerged that had the two fought, Kessler would have stood victorious, and the world would have been saved. However, instead of risking himself, Kessler focused on protecting his family and fled with them across the globe as the Beast rampage continued, with Kessler failing to realize his folly until it was far too late. Because eventually, the world was in ruins, Kessler's family lay dead, and there was nothing left to save. So, Kessler used his powers to travel back in time, several decades, to seemingly before he had even been born.
Once there, he assumed the name Kessler and took over a secret society known as the First Sons, a powerful hidden group that experimented on and studied conduits and their powers. Under his direction and fueled by his prophecies of a great beast that would come, Kessler redirected the organization's efforts, focusing on such projects as the Ray Sphere, a bomb that projected Rayfield energy in a roughly 5 to 6 block radius, designed to kill all normies in the area and fully awaken any and all conduits in that same area. Kessler spearheaded this and many other efforts for decades as leader of the First Sons, all with a single goal in mind: expedite the power growth of this timeline's Cole Macgrath and ensure that he was the kind of man, the kind of hero, that the world would need when the Beast arose. A man that would stand and fight victorious rather than run and hide. And this is one of the honest real-world beauties of this game. The Infamous series has a karma system. You choose to be good or evil in large or small ways throughout each of the games. This affects the way the NPCs interact with you, key story points and endings, and even how your powers develop as the game progresses. When they originally conceived the game designers did so acting under the assumption that the player base at large would choose to be the destructive bad guys.
The game is called Infamous. Each of the stages of good or bad in the karma scale come with a title, and the title you have at max bad karma is Infamous. They believed that is what the players would be. However, when they designed the second game, they had to canonize which version of Cole's actions was true, because storylines are a thing. Was Cole infamous, or was he heroic? Ultimately, they decided to make the choice based upon data collected from the player base, and discovered that the majority of players had chosen the good karma route in Infamous 1. As such, the game designers canonized Cole's good karma actions as the canon storyline for the series, even killing off an idea for a third Cole-centered game in which he actually became the Beast himself, as that would have followed the evil karmic option. Not only do we love the fact that so many people out there chose to be the good guys when no one was watching, but by developing the game this way, the designers kind of unintentionally created a parallel between themselves and the player base and Kessler and Cole that we find fascinating. Kessler is 100% infamous on the karma scale. He is absolutely willing to do whatever is necessary to ensure that Cole is ready for the Beast when he comes. He even kills off Cole's Trish, despite the fact that she was the love of Kessler's life, the mother of his children, because he wants Cole to be able to make the hard choices, unburdened by fear or love for those closest to him. In fact, during the boss battle with a heroic Cole, Kessler despairs that all of his work has been wasted, that Cole is too weak, too soft. But despite that, Cole manages to walk a better path and beat Kessler anyway. And we love that.
Back to the in-game plot, Kessler spent decades perfecting the Ray Sphere, preparing for the arrival of the Beast and orchestrating the events of Infamous 1 to train Cole until finally he was ready. During this time, the First Sons were infiltrated by two NSA agents, Kuo, who will come into play in Infamous 2, and John, who spends the last half of Infamous 1 working directly with Cole, and who would one day become the Beast himself. Oh no, spoilers, like we warned you. When the game begins, Cole is working as a bicycle messenger, a simple courier. Kessler contacts Cole's agency and requests for Cole specifically to be the person to deliver a specific package. That package was the Ray Sphere, supposedly set on a timer to go off during Cole's delivery. To ensure that Cole would still be with the package, Kessler called Cole's phone directly while Cole was en route, asking him to open the package. When Cole did so, the sphere exploded, killing almost everyone within a 5 or 6 block radius. Hence why we said supposedly set on a timer. The blast awakened Cole's conduit genes as well as those of others in the blast range, including most of the game's bosses. Cole fell into a coma for 4 days, during which time he was watched over by Trish and his best friend Zeke. While all around them, the city fell into chaos and ruin. The Rayfield plague swept quickly and deadly through the city. Panic accompanied riots and crime sprees. The government, working on a cure, quarantined the city, establishing a military blockade around it, while city officials and police died, ran, or were spread so thin as to be virtually ineffectual. When Cole woke up and went to work that day, life was normal. When he woke up after the delivery 4 days later, they were living in an apocalypse.
Everything so far has been set up, unchanged, part of the story. From this point on, we'll be covering the good karma version of Cole's story, because those are the canonical series of events. So, when Cole awakens, he, Zeke, and Trish set about trying to survive in the hellscape around them while coming to grip with Cole's new powers. However, early on, during a government food drop, video footage is shared with everyone of Cole with the bomb at Ground Zero, just before the explosion, and he gets blamed for the disaster. Even Trish believed the story, breaking up with him over it. Afterward, Cole and Zeke spearheaded an operation to push through the quarantine, which ends in Cole meeting a CIA agent who falsely claims to be John's wife, that NSA spy in Kessler's ranks, and asks for Cole's help in tracking John down since he'd gone missing when everything went to crap. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, Cole helped the agent look for John while she fed him information about what was happening throughout the city. His actions quickly brought him into conflict with a Conduit, who was now running one of the factions that controlled a good chunk of the city. She was pumping hallucinogenic mind-controlled tar into the water supply to gain followers. Cole cut the water supply off from the tar before battling her, defeating her before she was carried off by Kessler's people. And it was just before this event that Kessler and Cole met face-to-face for the first time, with Kessler passing on a cryptic warning in the form of a badly mangled vision of Kessler's future, which Cole saw but incorrectly determined to be events that Kessler would cause if he weren't stopped.
Afterward, John came up against another Conduit with powerful psychic and telekinetic abilities, who'd gained a following among the destitute and downtrodden. After their first confrontation, which involved telekinetically throwing an armored ambulance onto a rooftop, Cole finally met John for the first time, learning only then of the FBI agent's deception, as John informed him that he had never been married, and certainly not to an FBI agent. With John now applying information on the FBI's stead, Cole went after the telekinetic conduit, as they discovered that he'd acquired the Ray Sphere and obviously didn't want him using it again after the devastation it caused the first time. Cole and Zeke stormed the enemy hideout, and Zeke stole the sphere while Cole fought the conduit leader. But when Zeke was unable to use the sphere to gain superpowers for himself, Kessler appeared, offering to help Zeke make the sphere work. Zeke left with Kessler and the sphere, leaving a shocked Cole in the collapsing building. John and Cole thereafter tracked the sphere down to a First Son hideout and agreed that the best thing to do with the sphere was to destroy it. However, when they did so, a rift of destructive energy opened, pulling John in and seemingly vaporizing him. Though Cole managed to escape the blast, this was the beginning of the beast, as John was destroyed at the molecular level by the power inside the sphere, but his consciousness somehow survived, and in the time between Infamous 1 and 2, he slowly pulled his body back together with his newfound powers.
Infamous 1 culminates in a battle between Kessler and Cole. By this time, Kessler has fueled Cole's hate for him, watched as all of his carefully orchestrated plans have laid increasingly challenging obstacles before Cole. Kessler even made Cole choose between saving Trish, a single doctor and the woman he loved, or 6 other doctors who could do far more to help the sick and wounded in the city. Not so fun fact, whatever the player chooses, Trish dies. All of this after Trish had finally come around to realizing it had been unfair to blame the explosion on Cole, and obviously, watching his exploits since then, he hadn't been party to it on purpose. With her dying breath, she told Cole how proud she was of him. All of these events, and more, fueled Cole's hatred for Kessler, and he attacked his future self with everything he had. Kessler, older and far more experienced, had a breadth of powers at his disposal that dwarfed Cole's, but between Cole's determination and the surprise help from a gun-toting Zeke out to right his wrongs, Kessler finally lay defeated. His last act was to share a proper vision of the future with Cole, bringing everything into focus, showing Cole who Kessler really was, as well as the danger of the beast. Cole would not release his hatred for what Kessler had done to him, but he did swear to be ready for the beast.
Infamous Post-Blast was a comic miniseries that takes place between Infamous 1 and 2, wherein Cole helps fight off a military occupation of the city and abduction of all active conduits for service in the government, while simultaneously and more importantly dealing with one of Kessler's test subjects who'd gotten free. The test subject had been exposed to horrific experiments in Kessler's quest to perfect the Ray Sphere on agreement that his family would be provided for. The test subject was granted numerous abilities and immense power by the process, though he was physically altered beyond all recognition. After Kessler's death, the test subject was freed, and returning home to find his family dead, flew into a rage, vowing to kill Kessler and, unsurprisingly, mistakenly focusing on Cole instead, since Kessler was gone and the test subject's senses told him that Cole was undisputedly Kessler, the target for his rage, since they were, after all, genetically the same person. Throughout the comic, Cole considers running or turning himself in to protect the people around him, despite everyone telling him that they were all safer with him by their side. The most important moment comes during the climax of the story, when Cole watches the test subject battling the military who want him alive for their own use, and realizes that he spent his whole life running, that Kessler spent his whole life running, and that if things were ever going to change, he had to make a stand. He had to fight. So he did, killing the test subject and sinking the military flagship in the harbor in a very public battle that brought the existence of conduits to the public eye, because apparently up till now, it hadn't been.
Infamous 2 picks up sometime later, with the city being in the midst of long-running repair operations while Cole, Zeke, and Agent Kuo, John's NSA compatriot formerly undercover in the First Sons, prepare to cart the two friends off to a different city in an effort to strengthen and prepare Cole for the Beast's oncoming arrival. Unfortunately, that very day, the Beast was reconstituted. After weeks of excruciating work, John had pulled himself back together. Conduit powers fully activated and presumably empowered by whatever energy had been at the center of the Ray Sphere. However, his body was still being broken down by those same energies, so he had to actively fight to keep himself alive. The effort of fully reconstituting his body drove him temporarily mad as he was reborn, screaming into the world as a literal giant fiery titan. He reflexively lashed out against anything near him, especially Cole, who, recognizing the Beast from Kessler's visions, threw absolutely everything he had at an unrecognizable John. Cole did so much damage that John's body broke, but he, again, regrew it soon after as their battle raged, ending in something of a double KO. The level of exertion, combined with the obscene amount of damage Cole sustained, resulted in a tremendous loss of power for him. New game, level 1! While on the other hand, John reconstituted again shortly thereafter, before destroying the city with a Rayfield-like energy blast, slaying all non-conduits in the city.
Cole woke up sometime later on a boat to another city and was filled in on the events while he began working to regain his powers, because Cole can't start a game conscious. When they arrived, Agent Kuo put them in touch with her informant, a scientist from the First Sons who'd led the Raysphere project and had crafted a countermeasure, the Rayfield inhibitor, or RFI. A sort of anti-Raysphere that drained conduits of power and energy, but more importantly, cured normies of the Rayfield plague, which had slowly been spreading across the country for a while now. Unfortunately, the scientist's lab was raided and the devices required to power the RFI were scattered throughout the city. The good news was, Cole could absorb the energy from said devices. Absorbing the energy from all of them would not only allow him to power the RFI, saving everyone from the disease globally, but theoretically make the beast weak enough to defeat, and icing on the cake, every device would grant Cole a new power.
The scientist gave Cole the first device and the RFI. They then discovered that whenever Cole used one, it knocked him out for basically the rest of the day. So during that initial discovery, the scientist was captured as Cole was, again, unconscious. Cole and company subsequently mounted a rescue effort, which was initially successful, but resulted in the scientist dying, Agent Kuo being captured, and Cole being badly injured. Cole spends the rest of the game tracking down the devices to power the RFI, making allies and enemies along the way, and, in the meantime, John finally came to his senses and realized that, while extreme, he has a cure for the plague. The plague has no effect on conduits, and John now had the power not only to sense latent conduits, but emit Rayfield blasts, meaning he could give the infected a quick death while awakening conduits and rendering them immune to its effects. Seeing no other way to save humanity, he began traveling the countryside, making a beeline for Cole, his friend and someone with the power and will to aid him.
Along the way, he Rayfielded everything in his path, killing thousands, possibly millions, and awakening latent conduits left and right. When he neared the city Cole was hunting devices in, Cole and company, at the time unaware of the beast's true identity, threw a literal nuke at him, which John quickly pulled himself back together from and then spoke to Cole, explaining that he was alive, apologizing for fighting Cole when he first woke up, and laying out his plan for saving humanity, asking Cole to join him. Cole ultimately refuses, even after discovering that the RFI would kill virtually all conduits while curing normies of the plague, Cole and company included. They battle John while protecting the RFI before finally Cole is able to fire it off, cleansing the planet of the plague but wiping out nearly all conduits across the globe. Each of the conduits on Cole's team dying either during the fight with John or as a result of the RFI pulse, himself included. In the aftermath, the world is saved, and Cole is buried in the city where it all went down, lauded as the official patron saint of the city and a hero of the world.
And that's basically Cole Macgrath, reluctant hero of the first two infamous games. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Dante Dispro and Lowstone Gray and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos, hit that subscribe button, and if you'd like to see our Let's Plays, follow the link in the description and subscribe to our Let's Play channel.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off.